all, I want to welcome you today to our Christmas blessing. It's been a few years, as we know, since we've been able to gather together during the Christmas season here at the hospital. And I know I have truly missed being able to do this. So I hope you find as much joy in being able to be together and really hear from our chaplains about a blessing for Christmas this year. As I look back on the last couple of Christmas seasons, I really think about how me and my family used to celebrate Christmas and the Christmas season. We used to find ourselves hurrying, right? Everything was a hurry. Running out to buy presents, running from, on Christmas Eve, running to church, then going to see the Christmas lights and running to the next place. Same for Christmas Day, and overindulging in food, overindulging in gifts, and really just found that, I was scurrying constantly to get from one place to the next. And then I would end the season, and I would be completely exhausted. And it was like a whirlwind. And I didn't feel like I spent any meaningful time with myself, with my family, with my friends, or with God. So I'm grateful through these last couple of years, it forced me to slow down during the Christmas season. And that craziness that once was my Christmas is now much more simple and quiet. And I've really been able to focus more on my own gratitude for the many blessings that God has provided me and those whom I love. And then in being able to focus on that, I've also been spending more time trying to find ways that I can spend my gifts and provide my gifts to others, whether it be through presents, whether it be through philanthropy, whether it be through, you name it. But just trying to really figure out how can I, now that I've slowed down, how can I share my blessings with others? And so I found through that I'm literally, this year has been fun for me. I don't know, maybe in my 20s, right? Christmas time was fun. I didn't have all these people and places to be. But I'm finding so much more joy in being able to be just present and having conversations with my son and with my family. And even the silly rounding that you see me and Tara and Tammy doing, that's been fulfilling because it's a way for me to spend time with you in a more joyful way. And so I know for sure that I'll never go back to the craziness that I used to call Christmas. I've learned to appreciate the silver lining that this pandemic brought through into my life over the holiday season. And so I'll also spend more time really living out the spirit of Christmas, being fully present with those around me and trying to spread joy and peace to all of you and all of those I love. So I'll turn it over to Rich, who's going to continue with his beautiful music. And please feel free in your handout today, you have some of the words, so feel free to sing along with Rich.
Great opportunity for us all to sing together, so I can hear you guys. So if you can and are able and want to, you want to stand and sing with me, that would be awesome.
afternoon. It's a joy to see all of you here this afternoon, and I can't tell you how wonderful it is to be together in the chapel and able to share some time together for Christmas. And for those of you who may be viewing this later online, know that we are so glad that you're able to spend some time wherever you are when you're able to watch this between now and Christmas. Thank you for taking time to join us as well. I would really like to extend a thank you first off to Rich and to Catherine and Chaplain LeBain, Neil and Katie, who will be helping me later. This is a team effort, always is every year, and it's always great to see people's faces light up when you mention something like this. We're going to do the Christmas blessing, and they want to help out, or have their arm twisted and come and help out anyway. So it is a hectic holiday time, right? There's things to do, lots of rushing around. But a couple weeks ago, my wife and I managed to sneak away and go on a date, which is something hard to do with two small children. And we decided we wanted something fun to watch, just to take our minds off of everything going on for a while. So we ended up going to see the movie Spirited, which is a movie with Ryan Reynolds and Will Ferrell. And of course, with those two, you can't miss, right? Well, it turns out it's a modern take on Charles Dickens' A Christmas Carol, one which is somewhat self-reflective and even breaks the fourth wall to let us know they realize they are in a long line of adaptations of this story. And they're right. Since Charles Dickens published his story in 1843, there have been dozens, if not hundreds, of adaptations for the stage and the screen. So I want you to think for a second. Which is your favorite adaptation of A Christmas Carol? Is it the classic 1984 television version that stars George C. Scott as Scrooge? A lot of people like that one. Or is it the 1988 film Scrooged with Bill Murray? A little more comedic take. Now at our home, we have a 2- and a 5-year-old. So this year we've seen both a Mickey Christmas Carol and the Muppet Christmas Carol. And while seeing Mickey Mouse or Kermit the Frog as Bob Cratchit may be a little bit of a stretch, both films, even though they're for children, stay true to the meaning of the original story. Scrooge changes who he is to embrace the spirit of Christmas in his life. He becomes a man of charity and goodwill, and not just for the holiday, but throughout the years of his entire life. These movies teach our children and their parents that it's good to give to others who are in need, to see connections to our shared humanity, and that it's never too late to change our ways for the better. These Christmas specials have a way of showing us truth while making us think we're being entertained. This is especially important for children, as the songs and characters help ingrain the morals of the story. But as those small children grow into adults, who may act like children every now and then, we see new depth in these characters and the stories when we reread them to our own children, nieces, nephews, and grandchildren. So take The Grinch, another story that's been adapted many, many times. But Dr. Seuss wrote this in the original. And the Grinch, with his Grinch feet ice cold in the snow, stood puzzling and puzzling, how could it be so? It came without ribbons, it came without tags, it came without packages, boxes, or bags. And he puzzled and puzzled till his puzzler was sore. Then the Grinch thought of something he hadn't before. What if Christmas, he thought, doesn't come from a store? What if Christmas, perhaps, means a little bit more? Christmas is a lot more. And I think over the last 2 years, as Catherine has said, we've learned that message many times over. COVID has forced us in many ways to reflect on what we hold as most important in our lives. So many of the Christmas activities we enjoyed were put on hold, including this blessing, plays and concerts, potlucks and homemade treats. But these are just the extras. They aren't what made Christmas important. Long ago, the prophet Isaiah foretold of the birth of one who would realign our priorities in the world. He wrote, "The people walking in darkness have seen a great light. On those living in the land of deep darkness, a new light has dawned. For unto us a child is born, and to us a son is given, and the government will be on his shoulders, and he will be called Wonderful Counselor, Mighty God, Everlasting Father, and Prince of Peace. Of the greatness of his government and peace there will be no end. He will reign on David's throne and over his kingdom, establishing it and upholding it with justice and righteousness from that time on and forever." Our ancestors in the faith waited for this day, and when it came, it was not with the sounding of trumpets or a royal parade, but rather in a humble stable. And Matthew wrote in his gospel, "All of this took place to fulfill what the Lord had said through the prophet. The virgin will conceive and give birth to a son, and they will call him Emmanuel," which means God with us. God with us as a meek and helpless child. The first Christmas did not come with fanfare or flourish. It did not come with parties or presents. But what was there was hope and faith. During difficult times, we can sometimes only focus on what we don't have in front of us. But we must remember that those who have come before us in the faith have seen difficulties as well, and were able to focus on the blessings that they did have. Our founding sisters went out into the world with the Spirit of Christ at the heart of all they did, not knowing what they would face, but knowing the truth that God would be with them. They gave away everything they had, down to their last loaf of bread. They faced epidemics, world wars, depressions, and recessions. And yet they did not falter in their faith, for they knew that God was by their side through everything. And this can be hard to remember. This is why it is important that we come together and remind each other of the Christmas story. Those who suffer around the world from persecution sometimes gather at risk of their very lives to reaffirm their faith in a God who is with us in the here and now, a God who walks by our side through the struggles of life, a God that knows the pain and heartache we feel. And 30 or 40 or perhaps even 50 years down the road, if I have the longevity of Sister Julia, when people ask how we faced these difficult times with a global pandemic, political unrest, shortages of everything, and a world on edge, we will be able to tell them that we stood firm on our foundation of faith, that we embraced the hope a small baby in Bethlehem provided more than 2,000 years ago, which promised that no matter what we may face in this world, we do not face it alone. As you leave the chapel this afternoon, I want you to look at the heritage wall that's outside. Look at the pioneers who came before us, who overcame so many obstacles. And remember that you are that next panel on the wall. Someday when our story is told, we will not be focusing on what we missed out during the COVID years, but on what we gained. What we found that was truly important in our lives, our faith, our family, and our friendships. We found colleagues and friends we could rely on when we weren't sure where we were heading. We found strength in the hope provided that Christmas morning, a hope that is so much more than presents and programs, a hope that is life-giving and sustaining. We know the words of the prophet Isaiah were true all those years ago. Christ is Emmanuel, God with us, and we know that he has been with us these last 3 years. May God bless each and every one of you, and Merry Christmas. I would now ask my assistants to come forward. Rich is going to play some music for us, and I'll ask you to come forward and, if you wish, receive a blessing from Chaplain LeBain or myself and have your candle lit by Katie or Neil, and hold it and return to your seat. When we're done, we'll join in singing Silent Night.
Thank you.
thank you, Rich, as always, for your absolutely beautiful music. And I don't know about you, but I love Silent Night. That's my favorite Christmas song. So thank you for your beautiful voice. And Chaplain Peter, I know you organized our blessing today, got all of us together, brought a thoughtful message to us for this Christmas blessing. So thank you for that. And for Chaplain Bain for helping with the blessings today. And for Neil and Katie for also helping with our candle lighting. Appreciate it. For all of you really taking time out today to attend. I know it's hard to get away, especially in the middle of the day. But so glad to see all of you here who could participate with us in this blessing. And I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. Would love to see this occur again next year. So keep the Christ in Christmas, I think is what I heard today, right? And the true meaning of our God and Christmas. And so I hope you too can slow down, find peace, and spend time with and doing those things that you enjoy the most. So thank you. Merry Christmas. I am honored to serve this ministry with all of you.